Everyone, thank you for being here today for our presentation on implementing teams with greater efficiencies. Today, I have two esteemed panelists, great friends of mine. Number one, Stephanie Baskerville from ProServeIT and Agnes Land from Change Connect. So what I'll do is I'll have both of you introduce yourselves and kind of go into a little bit about what you do and also, the goals you have for this presentation, and then we'll get right into the questions. And for anybody that is in the attendees, please feel free to chat, throw a message out there. If I see it and I can kind of tie it into to the conversation, I will do so. And if not, I'll still pump it up, and then we can get that message well known. All right, so I'll start with Steph.
Sure.
Please just a bit about yourself and what you do and what you hope to get from this presentation.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ryan. My name is Stephanie Baskerville. I am the content writer here at ProServeIT. We are a Microsoft Gold partner with a focus on helping organizations to unlock their digital future. My goal today is to showcase Teams in such a way that everybody on the line wants to use it in their organization. And that's exactly my goal today. Would love it. I'm a Teams convert myself, and I use it all the time, and I don't know where I was before I actually used it. Yeah, I want everybody to be as pumped about Teams as I am. So that's my goal.
Awesome. Agnes?
Yeah, hi, my name is Agnes. I'm the head of sales in Change Connect. We are a management consulting firm that leads with change management. So we're all about implementing different, either process or technology through the change, because if you think about any implementation, if people are not adopting to whatever it is that you want to do, then you don't realize your ROI. So that become a big focus as we realize that, and we help our clients through with the technology or process changes.
Oh, we might have lost Agnes.
Oh, that's okay. We'll just adjust on the fly. So
we will adjust. Yes, indeed.
Yeah,
yes,
100%. Anyway, we'll start with you, Stephanie. So the first question goes to you, and we'll integrate Agnes as she comes back to us. What are some hidden gems or like tips and tricks within Teams that people might not be aware of?
Yeah, so this is the, obviously Teams is, the priority for this particular webinar that we're going to talk about. So I'm super excited to actually explain a few things, a few hidden gems, if you will. These are just ways that sometimes Teams, you might not be aware that some of these things can be done. So we wanted to sort of highlight a few of those. I wanted to take an opportunity to show you some of these cool features. So I'm just going to actually, if I can, hopefully we can get Agnes back as well, but I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen here and do a little bit of a demo for you folks about Teams. So I'm hoping that you guys can, or you folks can see my screen here. Yep. You should be able to see the Teams demo is up, or this particular chat is up. If you're not familiar with Teams before, this is what the Teams platform looks like. So you've got chat, Teams, calendar, calls, all that fun stuff on the side. But a couple things that I really wanted to dive into today is the first thing I want to show off is actually the calendar, and it's really more about the integration with Office 365 stack. So one of the things that I love about Teams is that I don't actually have to open up Outlook to be able to go into my calendar. I can do it right from the Teams platform. So I'm going to go ahead and click in onto the calendar tab here. And what you're seeing right now is actually, you're seeing it, basically a correlation between my Outlook calendar and my Teams calendar. Whatever is in Outlook is here, and whatever is in Teams is in Outlook as well. So it's great. If I wanted to go ahead and create a meeting, I can also do that from the Teams platform as well. I can create just a new meeting button up here, and I can go ahead and I'll just show you right now, test. I'm going to add my colleague Holly to this. And the cool thing about this is that I can actually see right from Teams if she's free or if she's busy. It will show up what her status is. So I don't actually have to go into Outlook or into her Outlook calendar to be able to see it. And if I happen to see that at the time that I want to meet, she is busy, I can actually go into Scheduling Assistant right here, and I can literally just populate her calendar within Teams without having to leave the platform. And it's I can pick a time that works for both of us, right? So you can see that there's certain times here that she's not available, I can choose the time that is. I can go back to the details. I can go add a location, or sorry, add some details about the meeting, whatever those might be. And then I could just click send and it shows up in her calendar. She gets a message actually about it. I'm going to discard this because I've already sent a test one to her today. And I'm going to show you as well. The cool thing about this is that when you're in the calendar, you just click the join button. It automatically creates it as a Teams meeting. And then you just click the join button and off you go. You can meet. So that's the first thing that's really, really cool. Just the integration between your calendar and between, seeing what other people in your organization are doing or able to do. You can see that right from Teams. The second thing I wanted to say is, a lot of things that I think would resonate with people is task management. Task managers, you want to obviously, when you're running a team or when you're running managing a team, it helps to keep on the same page and keep on track and keep everything kind of in a centralized location, if you will. So with Microsoft Teams, what you can do is download, it's called Tasks by Planner and To Do. It is an integrated add-on that's very easy. You can look it up in the apps, integrations. I think it's under this little section here. Actually, if I go here, you can see find an app. You can look up Task by Planner and To Do. I have already pinned it to my team here, so you can see I already have the tab available to me. And the cool thing is if I click on this, I can basically pull up all of my tasks that I have to potentially do that day. And it's really interesting because it does break it down into like, I can look at just important tasks. So things that I really need to make sure of, I can click on important and it pulls up with what I actually need to do. So I can see here that important due today is to create content for this Teams webinar, for example, right? So I can pull up that I need to do this. I can mark that I have done it. I can mark it complete, which is great because it'll go into a different area where I can see completed tasks that I've done. But the other thing that you can do with this, and this also goes along with sort of something else that I'm going to talk about really shortly as well, but you can actually go into different teams and channels and put tasks based on your channels that you're part of. So I'm part of the workshop team here at ProServeIT, and in the channel I can actually go in and look at different tasks that are important for me. So I have a meeting with my colleague Bill to discuss an Azure workshop that we're going to be doing, and that's due on July 8th, so it's a low priority right now. So that's another interesting feature. Again, this is really a funky type way that you can kind of keep everybody on track and keep everybody sorted out. So that's awesome. The third thing I want to say is document sharing and co-authoring. This is super, super cool. Me as a content writer, I use this all the time. I'm consistently working on, or constantly working on, documents and collaborating with my colleagues on things that we want to be putting out on the, the websites or the blogs or things like that. So we can definitely, use it all the time. I'm going to go ahead and show you what this looks like, because what's really cool is it actually opens up different instances within your Teams platform. Again, you're not leaving the platform to be able to actually create these. And so if I go into my webinars, team that I'm a part of here, and I want to click on this document here, you can basically open it up, and it actually opens up a Word instance within your Teams platform. I can type things in here. I can make changes. I'll just show you how to do that. Testing this. Let's hope I can spell today. There we go. And everything that I'm actually doing within this particular document is being saved automatically. I don't need to actually, click a save button anymore or anything like that. This really helps because, when you're working with, I'm sure that, some people can probably relate to this, working with document versions, you name it, version 1, version 1.5, right, version 3.7, whatever it is, right? You don't want to have those things happen. So within Teams, because there's a correlation on the SharePoint and OneDrive backend, there's a correlation with SharePoint and OneDrive on the back end, you're always working with the most recent document, and you can collaborate and co-author. So if one of my colleagues wanted to jump into this document as well, I would see that they're in the document, and we would be able to collaborate it together. And it doesn't matter where in Teams that you are, if you're in a call, if you're on a chat, if you're in a team right now like I am, this is the same sort of functionality that you'll see each time. So it's pretty great. I mean, I use this all the time. I don't know how my life was different before this, this particular feature, but definitely excited about this. And then the last thing that I want to mention, of course, we've already kind of been into the teams and channels. We already kind of mentioned it a couple times throughout this demo, but what's really interesting about these is that it makes it easier for you to kind of see your projects and work collaboratively with your colleagues when you're using Teams, right? So you can create a group or a team that is like marketing, for example, like this one up here. I have marketing project management as an example, right? And then in between all the projects that we're working on, we can create channels. So it actually segregates from the main group how many people are on that project. You can actually kind of like break it down so that only the people that are part of the project would be able to see things. But the really cool thing about this that I actually just kind of learned myself, so I'm still learning about all the great things about Teams, is that you can actually get an email address for these teams and channels so that when you're collaborating on a project, if you're emailing back and forth about that particular project, you click the get email address, it pulls up an email that you can actually just copy right from there. And then when you're emailing about the project, and I did an example right here, it will actually appear in the channel that you're trying to email about, right? So it's a really cool way to, yeah, right? It's such a cool way to be able to get sort of a correlated list of all the emails that are related to one project in one area. So you're not trying to search through your Outlook all the time to find the emails. They're all right here. And if you had to look at the view original email, you can just click the view original email button and you're taken to the original email. So you can always go back to find where it was and what was discussed, but it's all here. So those are 4 features. I know it was a little bit long-winded there, Ryan, sorry about that, but definitely this is how, some of the ways that I'm using Teams in my day-to-day and some of the, things that I wanted to feature to try and get people excited about Teams, because it's super, super cool what they're doing right now. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. We'll head back to the conversation. And yeah, thanks.
Awesome. Yeah. So I think in the meantime, if you can let Agnes back on stage, that'd be fantastic.
Yes. Is she not on stage? Oh, there we go. I will make her the co-host again.
Beautiful.
All right, Agnes, are we back? There we go.
Just one quick comment. I will say those are great features, because I myself am a reformed supply chain professional, and there's nothing more frustrating than working with different versions in Excel and making decisions based upon numbers that are, a month old, but no one knows why they are a month old. So 100%, that's definitely key. Agnes, well, let's go to you. You're a very process-based thinker. What's the best way to organize Microsoft Teams from a process perspective?
Yeah, for sure. So, when we work with clients, one of the things that we realize is that, people aren't looking at Team the right way, or at least in my opinion, based on what, the audience would have just seen from Steph. Teams isn't a chat channel, which I think is where the biggest problem is right now in terms of people using it. Teams is being compared to Slack. Teams is being compared to, Google Hangout. But when you ultimately think about Teams isn't just a chat channel. It is, I would like to think of Team as a collaboration platform. And in that, when you're doing collaboration, chat is one thing of many things in a collaboration site. So, when you think about from a process standpoint, how do you get Teams started? Think about Teams as a collective or a collection of people that gather together around a common goal. And before creating a team per se, in Teams, you think about the goal, the project, the work. What is it that we're really trying to do, and what is our common goal in creating this team or this channel? And then really be focused around the setup and the governance piece of getting team to work. And once you've created these teams, then it's probably a good idea to start thinking about the different projects or different type of conversation that you want to group together, right? For example, if we're back in post-COVID days, when you're not going to invite everybody in your office into the meeting room to talk about this one thing that we're doing in marketing. It just doesn't make sense. So who you're inviting into each of these channels to have fruitful conversation, and who do you want collaborating, right? In the world of multifaceted, multifunctional teams. You have people belong to different team with different goals, but that's okay, right? I think don't shy away from creating different channels, different teams, because you think, oh, people shouldn't, what does it mean? How do we set it up, right? And you think about the initial channels of people to contribute to the conversation, something very nitty gritty, like use really good description name. Like, we in Change Connect, for example, when we use it, we have the projects, and then we have sub channels on what happens in each project, so that the conversation is kept. Like, if we're in this particular project, let's say we're doing an ERP implementation and a Teams implementation and a purchase order implementation, right? So you don't want the channels to overlap either, because then not everybody needs the information, and then it gets information overload, and people won't really appreciate what's going on. And before long, here's the biggest problem, is that they abandon the channel, because you know what? It's like getting all those emails. How many of us get 400, 500 emails a day? When you get those emails, you're like, oh, I'm not going to look at that. It's not relevant for me. And when people start to tune you off and say, okay, that isn't relevant for me, and that's where the problem starts. Is then you don't have a collaboration side. So when you think about collaboration, and one of the things with team, and why, as much as Teams is quote unquote easy to use, it actually is quite hard to implement if you think about it, because you have to jump in with both feet, right? If I have an option to have a conversation in Google, and then have a conversation in Teams, and then have a conversation in email, and then wherever you guys have conversations, then the idea of collaboration goes away, right? And then you're not really leveraging team for team's sake, and then you're not getting the benefit that you would need from having teams. So the idea of jumping in with both feet is important. The other thing I would suggest, and what I see a lot of clients not do, is leveraging the additional tools that Steph was talking about. So because you're looking at it as a Slack alternative, for example, then you're not adding the OneNotes, the Power BI, the planner. And if you're not adding the planner, like especially when you're executing project, if you're not adding the planner, you have the planner somewhere else, then you're leaving team, right? If you look at what Steph just did there, right? Steph did everything in Teams, right? From her tasks, from her checking off her checklist, to, she didn't do planner today, but to planner, to OneNote, to your calendar invite. If you do everything within Teams, then if you're not leaving, then that allows all the information to be in one central database. And then everyone in your organization then work in the same instance. Then the information flow is much easier. The other thing I would also suggest too, if you are a beginner Teams entity, is the idea of moderation. If you think about a channel who have control to open a channel, who doesn't have control to open a channel, it gets complex, right? Because you don't want to rob people of the permission to turn on a channel or start a channel, but at the same time, you also don't want people don't know what they're doing, starting a channel, and then becomes irrelevant. So there's quite a bit of process in place to get people using team appropriately, so that you get the buy-in from the rest of the organization that this is a collaboration site.
Yep, 100%. That totally makes sense. I think that any implementation needs to be moderately implemented, as opposed to either full tilt or like in pieces type thing. Okay, great. Let's go to Steph. This next question. In your mind, what are some of the competitive advantages that Teams holds when compared to other systems that are in the same market?
Yeah, I think from a competitive advantage perspective, aside from some of the features and the functionalities that I talked about before, which in other systems you might not necessarily get the same sort of feature and functionality, but a couple of the ways that I think Teams sort of sets itself apart is, first of all, of course, the integration with other tools and technologies. I mean, they're constantly adding new integrations, new ways, new things that can integrate with Microsoft Teams, so that again, you're not necessarily leaving that that centralized platform of Teams to be able to do other things. So that's number one. And I think that the reason why it's so interesting and so important, to have these integrations, of course, is to reduce that sort of dreaded tool overload, if you will, or not being able that redundancy, right? With you got 5 different tools doing the same thing. Which one do you choose? When do you choose it? This is something that ProServeIT, we hear all the time from our customers about, like, which tools do I use? When do I use these tools? And so when you have a well integrated solution like Teams, it leads to higher value. It leads to less choice for your employees to be able to choose, right? Like you've made a decision that Teams is the one that you're going to use, you start to use it, right? So that's, and the integrations, I feel like what Agnes just said about the Power BI and the OneNote and, all these integrations that can feed into Teams really helps with that. I think sets it apart from other systems. Another thing that I really love about Teams, and again, we are a Teams shop here, so I'm not certain if there is the same sort of functionality, but the searchable persistent chat history of Microsoft Teams is phenomenal, because basically what it means is that you can, when you type a keyword or type a key phrase into that search bar, it pulls up every conversation that you've ever had that is related to that particular keyword. So if I wanted to search for, a keyword that says like, Teams webinar today, like Teams webinar June 24th, I can basically pull up anything that happened within Teams, that relates to that. And it all basically shows up into one sort of single area where I can actually access. And then I can go click through and say, okay, that's not what nope, that's not what I was looking, that's the one I'm looking for. There we go. So that persistent chat, that searchable persistent chat, I think is a really cool feature that kind of sets itself apart again from competitors. The last thing I'll say, just for the sake of timing, because obviously I could talk about Teams all day, I love it, but the mobile capabilities of Microsoft Teams and the fact that you're basically just as functional on a desktop as you are on a laptop, as you are on a tablet, as you are on a mobile phone. You can quite literally do exactly the same thing from your phone that you can do from your desktop. I can basically just, if I had the time, I would basically pull up my phone right now and show you that all the stuff that I showed you before, I can do from my phone as well, including, the co-authoring documents, including all of that stuff. It's all available on my phone via the Teams mobile app. So, that's a massive, the ability to take your Teams wherever you go and be able to, do exactly what you do on Teams wherever you are is a phenomenal feature that I don't think it's really kind of matched out there with anything else, to be honest. So yeah, those are the 3 that I would like to highlight in this particular. Again, I could talk about it all the time, but I think I'll stop there, and we can go on to the next question, Ryan.
Right on, absolutely. So quickly, and just talk this for a few moments. If you create a task from OneNote to Outlook, does that link to the calendar in Teams, as Kathy pointed out in the chat just now?
If I create a task from OneNote to Outlook, does that link to the calendar in Teams?
Right.
That's a good question. I'm not usually creating tasks from OneNote to Outlook, so I don't know if I can answer that right away. But Kathia, if you want to email us at cloud@proserveit.com, I'll put it into the chat for you. I can get that question answered for you at the end of the webinar. I'll make sure that I kind of loop back with one of our Teams experts, and awesome. I will get them to answer that question for you for sure. Yeah, just email us cloud@proserveit.com.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Agnes, you are always talking with people about what systems they're using. What are users saying about their experiences with Teams?
I completely agree with Steph there in terms of the mobile functionality. I actually think it's unmatched. If you think about other apps out there that are, crown supreme, you think about the Salesforce of the world, whatnot, and there is generally functionality gap between their desktop and their mobile version. It's just the way it is. And I find am I lagging again?
A little bit.
Okay, so, but when I find with Microsoft in general, but in Teams, it is it is superior from that mobile functionality perspective. It is
Right.
quite awesome to see that. But Steph mentioned one thing that I want to highlight. It's interesting because like ProServeIT is a full Microsoft shop. So it's one thing that Steph loves it and believes it because she drank the Kool-Aid. We're not a full Microsoft shop. So when I look at it, and I'm still a team believer. I think that's powerful because if you think about Ryan, we implement easily 7, 8, 9 CRMs and CRMs and ERPs, whatnot. And
Yep.
I do. I genuinely believe in teams. Like once it's used well. I think that's a key, and that's my central messaging today. Is I don't think most of the organization that we talk to are even scratching the surface of how powerful team can be. And that's what bothers me. And why I'm like, Steph, we need to do a webinar because because I actually don't know that people are using it to its fullest capability. Like, I hear things, a few things, Ryan, back to your question. You guys, well, what are people saying in general, right? About team number one, I think people are saying that they're finding the flexibility sometimes causing confusion, right? Because it's so flexible, I don't know how to do that. And back to what Kathy was just saying, right? Well, can you do a task on OneNote and then have it like linked to the calendar? And the first thing that came to me, Kathy, is I wouldn't do my task that way, which is why why Steph is not giving you the straight answer here is because we won't from because that's not the regular workflow for doing a task if you live and breathe in teams already, because then you would just create a task. So it's interesting. I would like to see the answer to that question as well. So that's going to be interesting, but because it's so flexible, it causes confusion. And then it comes to should we let user create groups, should we let them manage themselves? How much of it does admin how much of it should admin do, right, to limit the capability? So that piece is, I get that a lot. The other thing also is, like I mentioned earlier today, is that people are leaving teams to do other stuff, right? So if most of us live and breathe Outlook, right? Or live and breathe some sort of an email system. Like when you first go into the morning, the first thing you open is your email, right? And in the world where you fully implement team, the first thing you actually would open is Teams, because that's also sort of where the central source of information is. And then you quickly be able to absorb everything that, between, when you left the computer yesterday to when you open it back up this morning, you can catch up very quickly as to what's going on. So I'm making those use of the extra tab is what I'm talking about too. Because if you are leaving teams to get somewhere else, then I think the essence of team is lost in your organization when
Right.
it's disjoint. Last but not least, also is I get this a lot is I'm on Hangout, I'm on Teams, I'm on Slack, I'm on Chatter, and I'm on Yammer. So exactly what am I supposed to do here, right?
Right.
I don't know, because it's not unlikely if you're on O365 that you're on Salesforce, and if you're on Salesforce, then you're asked to be on Chatter. And then if you're on Chatter, do I have the conversation in Chatter in terms of my sales deal, or am I having that conversation in Teams then, right? So, but those are they are not and they should not be user-driven decisions. They should be governance-related decisions. So one of the things when you look at all the ways a team can be used and can be an issue, it comes down to three things in my mind: governance, implementation, and training, right?
Right.
It's if you let the user run wild in there, it's like, well, kids in a candy store, right? They can do whatever they want. But then when you're collecting the information for reporting purposes, like what Steph was saying, if you want the idea of if I search certain keywords and everything comes up, it only happens if you're in one platform, right? So you cannot not put in the data and expect good results. So
Yep.
don't and back to my central messaging today is don't think of team as a messaging system. It really isn't. And instead of that, leverage it as a collaboration tool. And I think if that is your North Star, everything sort of falls into place.
Yeah, it's funny because the biggest irony about Teams and any platform that has these many options is that it creates inefficiencies. It's brought in to make things more efficient, but actually creates inefficiencies because you have all these different pathways that you can take, and sometimes you take them, and like you said, Agnes said, they're not governed by anything. And ironically, beyond that, the next step of irony is the fact that because those inefficiencies, they are not consistent across the board. So you have people that are, educated or strong users in Teams versus those who are not strong in Teams. The ones who are strong that know how to use the different tools will actually start to the performance metrics will actually start to deviate. So you brought Teams in, you're actually creating inefficiencies, but then you're also skewing performance, which is ironic. So it's very important to get to govern from the start, map out the different processes that you need, because these systems are all just cement, poured over process. So if you have a bad process, you're pouring these team cement over the bad process, and it's very hard to kind of decouple that later on. So it's ironic that those details exist. So Agnes, you're a huge fan of change management. As you base a business off it. How would you map the Microsoft Teams deployment to the change management model?
I'm a fan, but I'm sure not everyone here is as well versed with the model. So let me start you guys off with an easy model. I guess one of the model that a lot of change manager and change management professional live by is the idea of ADKAR. ADKAR. A stands for awareness, D stands for desire, K stands for knowledge, A stands for ability, and then R stands for reinforcement. So, and I look at that in sequential order. You need to have awareness before someone's heightened the desire to change, to having the knowledge and the ability to execute on the change, and the reinforcement to ensure that they keep doing the good behavior. Right? Those are the 5 steps. At least entry, an easy framework to remember. And if you think about the implementation of team, there's a planning phase, there's a delivery phase, and then there's an operation phase, right? And if you think about mapping that in terms of ADKAR, right, you might have a technical or legal evaluation piece, you might have an assessment piece, you might have an IT pilot piece, you might have a business pilot piece before the final rollout, right? So there are changes in between the whole cycle. And in that, you have to think about how am I mapping it back to ADKAR? And whether that is creating enthusiasm around the actual implementation of teams, getting people involved, right? Really selecting a small group to be the influencer, because that's key. The other thing, I mean, when you look at ADKAR, one place that people fall short is always the preparation of the desire, pumping it up so that people, your end user, have a desire to change, right? So you want to also outline the current business challenges and show your teams how using Teams has overcome that. Because if I'm using Hangout today, and you don't, you for whatever reason you're not giving me Teams, well, I'm already in Hangout for the last 10 years. Well, okay, probably not 10 years, but 5 years, right? Tell me why I have to change, because it's just another chat channel, and then you give me chatter too. So why is it that a user should change? And then you also want to ensure the new users have access to training, right? Because it's if you think about, and I hate sometimes that the clients would go and say, hey, here's a Teams video, go at it. Here's what training is about. But back to my point in the last question is, when Teams is so flexible to address everything, watching a video is not going to do it. Because watching a video is, if you think about training, and it's all forms of training in change management, training on functionality doesn't really help an end user sort of connect the dot between functionality and the day-to-day job, right? And
Right.
that's ultimately the difference between knowledge and ability. Is I can give you the knowledge on how to click, but am I giving you the ability to do your job right? And a video, for the most part, won't be able to do that. So what are you doing as an organization to bridge the idea of knowledge and ability? And then not leaving it to the end user's own device. I think that's the key. Is well, a lot of times we look at training, especially for technology like Teams, where you're like, well, I give you a video, you're trained. It becomes a checkbox off your list of things to do in a project plan, rather than really looking at adoption for adoption's sake and how I'm gonna support my end user to get 100% adoption. Especially, I told you earlier, if it's a collaboration site, if you don't get high adoption, then people will drop it. You,
Right.
the sponsor, might know it's the right thing to do, but if there's no collaboration, no meat in the on the bone, then people stop going to the site. If people stop going to the site, then people would never come back, right? So there's a little bit planning there as well. And last but not least, also, allow user to give you feedback, and then you can change it accordingly. Maybe they like the moderation. Maybe they don't want too many groups. Maybe they want the autonomy to do their own groups, right? Or channels, right? And or start their own team, whatever that means. So and or add their own apps, right, within their channel or in their teams. So there are things that I guess we can look at as an organization or as an implementation arm of an organization to get full adoption when you look at people's needs rather than just standing up a technology.
Yep, 100%. That totally makes sense. Okay, last question to you, Steph. And I'm going to ask this, and I'm going to ask you to address the comment from our attendee D previously. Your work life is obviously team centric. Would you be able to speak in more broad strokes about the team's future roadmap and what can users look forward to? And like I said, if you can address the comment by D about why we chose to use Zoom instead of Teams Live for the presentation, that'd be great.
Not a problem. Absolutely. Yeah. So just to answer that question, D, so the reason why we chose Zoom instead of Teams live events right now is because we actually ran a rather large event back in January, and we tried to use Teams live events, and a lot of people, like users on the other end, had trouble with permissions and trouble signing into Teams live events. So just for the fact that there seems to be a little bit of a disconnect on the end user perspective. It wasn't on our end that we couldn't use Teams live events, but just there was a number of people that mentioned that they had trouble with it. So to sort of mitigate around that and make sure that we had enough ability to come back in and to be a part of the webinar today, we decided to go against Teams live events and just use Zoom and showcase Teams in other ways. So that's one thing. But I will say that that's probably something that Microsoft will be continuing to improve. As Agnes was saying, we at ProServeIT, we call it our communications and collaborations hub, or hub for teamwork. That's kind of our thing. And so they'll be continuing to do lots of fun, upgrades and features and changes to features and things like that. So, for example, I know that within the next couple of months, they'll be doing, they'll be giving end users a choice on how they get notifications, and improving the mobile app. They've got a new visual layout that's going to come out soon at some point, and other features like that will be continuing to happen because this is more of a business audience today. If you look at the Microsoft roadmap, and of course you can look it up, what the Teams roadmap looks like. A lot of it is very much a technical technical changes that are happening. So I don't quite understand them. I will say that myself. I'm not a technical person. It's funny, I'm the content writer, but not tech myself. But lots of cool things. However, there was one feature that I did want to actually mention. That's actually one of the things that I'm most excited about, which will be coming soon. So Microsoft Teams is going to be the sort of the platform for what Microsoft has just launched as Microsoft Viva. And for those of you that are not necessarily familiar with Microsoft Viva, it's a new employee experience platform that is going to kind of reshape the way that we work and the way that we look at things. And so it brings together, communications, knowledge, learning, resources, insights, all of these different things. It pulls it together, to ensure that employees, especially as we kind of enter this sort of like, nebulous moment of hybrid work. A lot of us right now are hybrid or we're remote completely. And then, maybe in the next little while, we'll see things open up. And, from the COVID pandemic and stuff like that, we'll see organizations, bringing people back to the office. But there's always going to be that kind of like some people are not necessarily going to be on site. So how do we make sure that everybody feels connected, supported, and kind of brings their, as Microsoft says, brings their best selves to work, right? And so Viva is powered by Microsoft 365. It's experienced primarily through the Microsoft Teams platform, as I mentioned, and it's really there to kind of foster a culture where people and teams are kind of empowered to do their best. And so the one that I really am excited about is it's broken down into 4 modules. There's connections, there's insights, there's topics, and there's learning. But the one that really caught my eye when I was doing research for this webinar was the fact that the insights model really takes on employee mental health and wellness, and it takes it into consideration, and it shows employees how to improve employee mental health and wellness in their own lives, right? So it helps them. From a management perspective, it helps your employees to become more productive. It helps your employees to be, less burned out, more happy with their jobs, more satisfied with work, that kind of thing. So it's really, really, it's really, really cool. And the reason why I find it so interesting is I'm a massive mental health and wellness advocate. I love talking about mental health, and the fact that through Teams, I'll be able to access Viva Insights so I can sort of see my own personal work habits kind of laid out for me. And I can identify if there's an area where I could take my mental health and wellness to a next level, and be able to work smarter or work better, be more in tune with the idea of mental health and wellness from a work perspective, right? So I love this fact that they'll show me things like how many meetings I've had in a week. How have I had time to like focus on what my tasks are? Who I've collaborated with most often. Like, am I going back to like one person, or is there too much time being taken? As much as that sounds kind of weird, is there too much time with collaboration and not enough focus time? All these things. And it'll also show me things like, are there days that I work later than I should have? Like, are there days where I've put in overtime when I probably shouldn't have put in overtime, And it'll show me how much I can sort of take those better work habits, I'll call them, and be able to get actionable recommendations on prioritizing my well-being. And they're like, for the people that are working remotely right now, I don't know about Ryan or Agnes here on the line with me, but I have had a lot of trouble with the fact that I don't have a commute anymore. Like, yeah, it's great that I can roll out of bed, half an hour later than usual and, still make it to my desk on time because it's literally just down the stairs. But you do take a lot of time during those commutes to be able to kind of put yourself in the right mental headspace, right? And when you're coming home from work after the day, you're kind of taking that commute time, whether you're on a train or whether you're, in a car or walking or whatever, and you're kind of putting work side away and you're focusing on home life, right? And so you're actually being able to kind of like separate yourself. But when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, obviously we lost that. We lost that ability to kind of have that commute. Some of us, some of us on the line might still be going into the office, and, but a lot of people did have to make that shift. And so with Viva Insights through Microsoft Teams, one of the really cool things is that you'll be able to actually have like a virtual commute. So it'll start to count down, like at, if your workday ends at 5, for example, it'll pop up at like 4:45 and say, hey, your workday is ending in 15 minutes. Let's start your, let's start your going home not your commute yet because you haven't stopped work, but it's like, let's start, packing in things. Let's start, winding down the tasks that you're doing. And like, it'll actually give you kind of prompts as you go that will be able to help you sort of get back into that mindset of, okay, I'm leaving the office now, even if that's just your kitchen table. I'm leaving the office and I'm going to go back into my home life, and my home, my personal time, right? So it's really, really fun. I think it's really cool. I think, I love it. And from a management perspective, they also have a management side of this as well. So from managers and, people that manage teams and things like that, not the teams, the platform, I mean, but teams like actual people, they will be able to actually see insights into how their team is performing and how their team is looking. And if there's a problem that might be, like, do they have to address some burnout? Do they have to address overworking? Do they have to address, are these people not taking the breaks that they're supposed to be taking, which is going to lead to less productivity? So there'll be all these kind of things that they'll be able to look at. And again, it'll all be on the team's platform as the kind of, central hub to bring it all together. So they'll be able to go in on their one-on-one meetings in teams and say, let's look at what let's look at how this looks. Okay, I've noticed that this is, what can we do to sort of help you with a better work-life balance or better work-life integration, or even just, I've noticed that you're not as productive. Like, let's figure out how to help you get back on track with more productivity and things like that. So really, really cool feature, something I can't wait to see. Really looking forward to seeing that in production in the coming months. I'm not sure exactly when Microsoft has something on their website right now saying it's out. So I'm not sure exactly. We haven't implemented it yet ourselves, but definitely looking forward to the day where I can kind of dig into that and see. But yeah, and of course, just continuing with those improvements and watching Microsoft make, they are committed to investing in this platform. They're not going to just, drop the platform. This platform was designed to replace Skype for Business Online, so they're going to keep bringing more things in and making it more of that centralized hub for teamwork and collaboration across your organization. And yeah, definitely some exciting stuff coming down the pipeline, I'm sure.
Cool. Yeah, no, that's great. Like, I'm excited to kind of get a look at that and see what kind of change it makes from an immediate standpoint, but then also a long-term standpoint. That sounds excellent. So both of you, is anything to kind of throw in in the last 10 minutes we have here, or what would you like to kind of accomplish? And then if we have any time left over, let's go to some Q&A and see if anybody has any questions.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Agnes, did you want to mention sort of what Change Connect's doing, and then I'll follow it up with ProServeIT, or do you want me to go first? Doesn't matter to me.
Sure. No, actually, I know we have quite a number of you here today. So what we're giving away today, though, is, I know if you're here, likely you're having some problem implementing Teams. So we're on the Change Connect side, we're offering a workshop for putting together your governance, your change management plan, and we'll work with you on how to sort of steer the ship back into good adoption. So if you can leave your contact information in the chat and let us, on the panelist side, of course, then we will collect that information and we'll reach out to one lucky winner.
Awesome. And on the ProServeIT side, so, again, the idea of implementing Teams or adopting Teams a little bit more, we are actually doing a Teams with Tony webinar series. So Tony Caporaletti is my colleague. He is our Unified Communication Solutions Architect. He is like our Teams expert on the thing, on our team here, I guess. That's too many teams there, I think. But anyway, we will be doing a Teams with Tony webinar series that's starting in August. And basically it's going to cover various Teams related topics like Teams voice and calling. So giving you a little more information about Teams voice and calling and what that would look like for your organization. Direct routing, again, what that would look like, governance and security, end user adoption, breakout rooms, and just an overall Teams, collaboration, communication, look into Teams and sort of what that looks like for your organization. So we are really excited about these webinars. We'll be sending out an email like a follow-up email thanking everybody for attending today's webinar, and we'll include the link to where you can sign up for those webinars if you're interested in one or all of them. You can certainly sign up. They'll be happening every other month starting in August. So stay tuned for that.
Fantastic. All right, that's great. Like, I appreciate the time from both Stephanie and Agnes. And any of the attendees have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat and we can address them as we go. I think it's a great conversation. I think that we, you know, it was definitely we got to a lot of points, and which is fantastic. I think that we definitely the appetite is now increased for more. Obviously, I think that hopefully one of the things that was accomplished by the two of you today was kind of the shift in mindset that yes, teams exist as is, but I would venture to guess that not a lot of companies are using it to full potential, and in the right ways. So that's great. I'm glad that we've discussed that.
Sounds good. If there's no questions, then we can call it a day today. Thank you so much for attending.
Of your day back.
All right.
Wonderful.
Anyway, thanks again, Stephanie Baskerville and Agnes Land for joining us. And yeah, let's we'll go from here. And then, like, if anybody has any questions in the attendees that they want to reach out to Stephanie or Agnes or myself, feel free to do so. Our contact information will be available, and then we can go from there.
I've just added cloud@proserveit.com into the chat there. You can certainly give us a shout as well. And again, we will do a joint follow-up email after this webinar. So you'll get the recording from the webinar, and then you'll also be able to connect with Agnes, Ryan, or myself as well.
Right.
So,
and I've just added our info
perfect.
at email
Info
address.
at
Now, if any questions, any questions about what we do and how we can contribute, that's definitely available too.
Wonderful.
Okay. Thanks everybody.
Thanks, everyone.